There are lines you don't cross, rules carved in blood and silence that hold empires together. Adrian Vaughn built his kingdom on them. Every threat eliminated, every weakness buried, every emotion locked behind steel. Then his daughter's best friend walked into his world wearing a white graduation dress and a smile that didn't know fear. One look. That's all it took to crack the foundation of everything he'd built. Some attractions destroy you slowly, others detonate on contact. This one? This one was gasoline meeting a lit match in a room with no exits. If you're ready to witness what happens when power meets the one thing it can't control, stay with this story until the very end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The ballroom at the Beverly Hilton dripped with champagne and accomplishment. Graduates spilled across the marble floors in clusters of designer gowns and rented tuxedos, their laughter bouncing off crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's cars. Elena Carter stood near the terrace doors, holding a glass of something sparkling that she hadn't actually drunk from, watching Lily Vaughn work the room like she was born to it, which Elena supposed she was. "You're doing that thing again," Lily said, appearing at Elena's elbow with two fresh glasses. She pressed one into Elena's hand even though the first was still full. "That observer thing. Stop observing. Start celebrating." "I am celebrating." "You're cataloging. There's a difference." Lily clinked their glasses together with enough force to make the bubbles riot. "We graduated, Elle. Top of our class. We're supposed to be insufferable about it." Elena smiled despite herself. Lily had that effect, an ability to pull you into her orbit whether you wanted to go or not. They'd met freshman year at UCLA, two girls who shouldn't have clicked. Lily, with her coastal confidence and trust fund spontaneity, Elena with her scholarship anxiety and 5-year plan laminated in her desk drawer. But somehow it worked. "Your dad coming?" Elena asked. Something flickered across Lily's face, brief, complicated. "Said he'd try. You know how he is." Elena didn't, actually. In 4 years of friendship, she'd never met Adrian Vaughn. He was always traveling, always in meetings, always existing in the abstract. A voice on speakerphone, a signature on Lily's tuition checks, a shadow that funded everything but appeared nowhere. "Come on," Lily said, linking their arms. "Marcus is doing tequila shots in the courtyard, and I need witnesses when he makes terrible decisions." They wove through this crowd, past clusters of their classmates already drunk on futures they'd probably never live up to. The night air outside hit cool and clean, carrying the smell of jasmine from the hotel gardens. Marcus Chen was indeed attempting to organize a shot-taking competition, his bow tie already undone and hanging around his collar like a fabric question mark. "Ladies," he announced, spreading his arms wide. "Witnesses have arrived. Baxter just claimed he could do 10 without flinching. I smell liability." "I smell regret," Elena said. "That's the same thing in my family," Baxter shot back, but he was grinning. The next hour dissolved into the kind of chaos that only happens when people who've been stressed for 4 years straight finally let the pressure valve turn. Someone's heel broke on the terrace steps. Someone else's girlfriend threw a drink at someone's boyfriend for reasons that were never fully explained. Marcus made it to 7 shots before declaring victory and defeat simultaneously. Through it all, Elena felt something settling in her chest. Relief, maybe. Or permission. She'd spent so long sprinting toward this finish line that she'd forgotten what it felt like to just stand still. "You thinking about the Grayson offer?" Lily asked during a quiet moment. They'd retreated to a stone bench near the fountain, away from the main chaos. Always. Elena had received the job offer 3 weeks ago. Junior analyst at Grayson and Associates, a corporate law firm in Century City. Good salary, better benefits. The kind of position that turned into a career if you didn't screw it up. "You're going to take it." "Probably." "Definitely." Lily bumped her shoulder. "You've had your acceptance speech memorized since sophomore year." That was true, but Elena didn't confirm it. She watched water arc from the fountain's centerpiece, catching light from the lanterns scattered through the garden. "What about you?" Elena asked. Lily shrugged. "Dad wants me to take some time, travel, figure things out without pressure." "Must be nice." "Must be terrifying," Lily corrected. "At least you know what you're doing next." "I'm supposed to just exist? Find myself? How do you find something when you don't know what you're looking for? Before Elena could answer, Lily's phone lit up on the bench between them. She glanced at the screen, and her whole posture changed. "He's here," she said quietly. "Your dad?" "Yeah." Lily stood, smoothing her dress, even though it didn't need smoothing. "He's inside, probably causing a scene just by existing. Want to meet him?" Elena's stomach did something complicated. "Sure." They made their way back through the terrace doors into the ballroom. The energy had shifted in their absence. Conversations had gotten louder, drunker, more reckless. Someone had convinced the DJ to play something with bass that definitely didn't match the venue's usual standards. Then Elena saw him. Adrian Vaughn stood near the bar like he'd been carved there. Tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a black suit that made everyone else's look cheap by comparison. Dark hair threaded with just enough silver to suggest competence rather than age. He wasn't doing anything particularly noteworthy, just standing there, drink in hand, watching the room with the kind of attention that missed nothing. But every instinct Elena had learned to trust said, danger. Not the obvious kind. Not the jump-scare, dark alley kind. The calculated kind. The kind that knew exactly what it was and didn't apologize. "Daddy!" Lily's voice went bright and young in a way Elena had never heard before. She crossed to him, and Adrian's expression softened into something almost human. "Look at you," he said, and there was actual warmth there. "All grown up." "Officially." Lily gestured back toward Elena. "This is Elena, my best friend, the one I told you about." Adrian's gaze shifted. Elena felt it like a physical thing. His eyes were dark, brown so deep it read almost black in the chandelier light. They landed on her, and for a second, maybe two, the entire room ceased to exist. She should say something, extend her hand, do literally anything other than stand there like someone had unplugged her brain. "Elena Carter," she managed finally, stepping forward. "Nice to finally meet you, Mr. Vaughn." "Adrian." His handshake was firm without being aggressive. Professional. Appropriate. But his eyes stayed locked on hers a beat longer than necessary. "I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I hope." "Suspiciously good." The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile. Something more controlled. "Which makes me wonder what she's not telling me." Lily laughed, oblivious. "Oh, I tell you everything. Elena's perfect. Straight A's, 3 job offers, probably going to run a Fortune 500 before she's 30. "Nobody's perfect," Adrian said, still looking at Elena. "Close enough," Lily countered. Elena felt heat crawl up her neck. She pulled her hand back from his, suddenly aware that she'd let it linger too long. "Your daughter's exaggerating." "My daughter has many talents," Adrian said. "Exaggeration isn't one of them." There was something happening in the subtext that Elena couldn't name. A conversation beneath the conversation. She had the distinct sense that Adrian Vaughn was the type of man who said exactly what he meant while saying something else entirely. "Drink?" Lily asked, already waving down the bartender. "Not for me," Adrian said. "I can't stay long." "You just got here." "I know, but I wanted to see you. Tonight mattered." Lily's expression did something complicated. Pleasure and disappointment competing for space. 15 minutes? 15 minutes, Adrian agreed. They drifted toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, Lily chattering about graduation speeches and summer plans. Elena followed because refusing would have been weird, but every nerve in her body screamed that she should find an excuse to leave. Adrian asked appropriate questions about their plans, their majors, what they wanted to do with the expensive educations they'd just completed. He was good at seeming interested without being intrusive, but Elena couldn't shake the feeling that he was cataloging information the way a general studies a map. "Elena's starting at Grayson in August," Lily offered at some point. "Corporate law?" "Litigation track," Elena confirmed. "Ambitious." "Practical." Adrian's eyebrow lifted a fraction. "Those aren't mutually exclusive." "No," Elena agreed. "But one pays better than the other." That almost smile returned. "Spoken like someone who understands how the world works." "I understand how bills work." Lily snorted. "Elena put herself through school, full ride plus 2 jobs. She's pathologically responsible." "Responsibility's underrated," Adrian said. "That's because you're old," Lily teased. "I'm experienced. That's what old people say." Their back and forth had an ease that surprised Elena. She'd expected something different based on Lily's occasional comments, something colder, more distant. But watching them now, she saw genuine affection, complicated maybe, filtered through whatever weird dynamics rich families operated under, but real. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I need to take this." "Of course you do," Lily said, but there wasn't real heat in it. He stepped away, phone already at his ear, and Lily turned to Elena with an apologetic smile. "Sorry, he's always like this. Empire building waits for no one." "What does he do exactly?" Elena had asked before, but Lily's answers were always vague. "Import-export, business consulting, a bunch of things I don't really understand." Lily waved it away. "Boring rich people stuff, the kind where you have meetings about meetings." Elena nodded like that made sense, but her eyes tracked Adrian across the room. He'd moved to the terrace, visible through the glass doors. His posture had changed, shoulders tight, jaw set. Whatever conversation he was having, it wasn't pleasant. "You want to get out of here?" Lily asked. "Hit the after-party at Josh's place?" "Yeah," Elena said, pulling her attention back. "Sounds good." But as they gathered their things and said goodbyes, Elena found her gaze drifting back to the terrace. Adrian had finished his call and was staring out at the city lights, drink in hand, expression carved from stone. Then, like he could feel her watching, he turned. Their eyes met across the ballroom, across champagne bubbles and graduation speeches, and the whole complicated distance between who she was and who he was. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Or warning. Elena looked away first. Had to. Because the alternative was admitting that she felt something she had no business feeling. She followed Lily out into the night, into the chaos of after-parties and bad decisions, trying to convince herself that the flutter in her chest was just adrenaline, just graduation night nerves, just nothing at all. The week after graduation moved like honey, slow, thick. Elena spent it packing up her studio apartment in Westwood, fielding calls from her mother, who wanted to know every detail about the ceremony, and trying not to think about Adrian Vaughn. She failed spectacularly at the last one. It was stupid. She knew it was stupid. He was Lily's father. He was probably 20 years older than her. He was the kind of man who wore power like a second skin and made decisions that shaped other people's lives without asking permission. But her brain didn't care about logic. It just kept serving up snapshots, the way he'd looked at her, the almost smile, the feeling that he saw straight through every performance she'd ever given. "You're being ridiculous," she told her reflection on Tuesday morning. Her reflection didn't argue. By Friday, Lily called with a proposition. "Beach house," she announced without preamble. "Malibu, this weekend. Say yes." Elena wedged her phone between her shoulder and ear, continuing to stuff books into a cardboard box. "I'm kind of in the middle of packing. I know, you're always in the middle of something productive." Lily's voice carried that particular brand of affectionate exasperation she'd perfected over 4 years. "Which is exactly why you need a break. Come on, ocean, wine, zero responsibility. When's the next time you'll have completely empty calendar days?" She had a point. Elena's position at Grayson started in 6 weeks. Between now and then, she'd planned to find a new apartment, set up her workspace, prepare for the transition into actual employed adulthood. "Who else is coming?" Elena asked. "No one. Just us." "Well," Lily paused. "Dad might be around some of the time. He uses the place as an office occasionally. But the house is huge. You probably won't even see him." Elena's stomach did that complicated thing again. "I don't want to intrude on family time." "Please, you are family. And trust me, Dad won't care. He'll be locked in his study doing whatever mysterious business things he does. We'll have the whole beach to ourselves." Elena looked around her half-packed apartment, at the systematic piles, at the color-coded moving schedule taped to her wall. "Okay," she said. "Yeah? Yeah, I'm in." Lily's squeal probably violated several noise ordinances. "But, The Vaughn Beach House wasn't a house. It was a statement. Elena had grown up in a 3-bedroom ranch in Riverside with carpet that never quite came clean and a water heater that worked on prayer. She'd learned early that rich people lived differently, but knowing it and seeing it were different things. The structure rose from the Malibu coastline like something from an architectural magazine. All clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, white stone and warm wood, designed to blur the line between inside and outside. The ocean stretched beyond it, infinite and blue. "Home sweet home," Lily said, pulling her Range Rover into the circular driveway. "This is insane," Elena breathed. "This is Dad being extra." Lily killed the engine. "Wait till you see the wine cellar. It has better climate control than most hospitals." They hauled their bags inside. The interior matched the exterior's aesthetic, minimalist without being cold, expensive without being showy. Everything looked like it had been selected by someone with both money and taste. "Your room's upstairs," Lily said, leading the way. "Ocean view, ensuite bathroom. I'll be right next door if you need anything." The guest room was bigger than Elena's entire Westwood apartment. The bed was a California king with sheets that probably cost more than her security deposit. Through the windows, she could see the private beach and the waves rolling in with hypnotic consistency. "I'm going to make drinks," Lily called from the hallway. "Come down when you're settled." Elena unpacked slowly, putting clothes in drawers that smelled like cedar, hanging dresses in a closet that had better lighting than most studios. The whole time her brain kept whispering, "You don't belong here." She told it to shut up. Downstairs, she found Lily on the deck, 2 glasses of white wine already poured. The sun was starting its descent toward the horizon, painting everything gold. "To freedom," Lily said, raising her glass. "To freedom," Elena echoed. They drank and watched the ocean and talked about nothing important. It should have been perfect. It was perfect. Except Elena couldn't quite silence the part of her brain that kept wondering if Adrian was here, where he was, whether he knew she was here. As if summoned by the thought, she heard a door open somewhere inside the house. Lily's head turned. "That's probably Dad. He said he'd be working late, but—" She stood. "I should say hi." Elena stayed on the deck, suddenly very interested in her wine. She heard voices inside. Lily's bright greeting, a lower response that she felt more than heard. Then footsteps. Adrian emerged onto the deck in jeans and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Somehow he made casual look like a deliberate choice rather than a lack of effort. "Elena," he said, "didn't realize you'd arrived. Just got here." She stood because sitting felt like a disadvantage. "Hope it's okay that I'm crashing." "You're not crashing. You're a guest." His gaze did that thing again, cataloging, assessing. "Lily mentioned you'd be joining us. I can stay out of your way. I'm not worried about you being in my way." The sentence hung there, meaning something she couldn't quite name. Lily reappeared with a third wine glass. "Dad, sit, relax. Use words like vacation unironically." "I don't vacation." "Then pretend. For me." She pressed the glass into his hand and he took it with the air of someone humoring a child. He sat in one of the deck chairs, and Elena tried not to notice how the motion made his shoulders move under his shirt, tried not to catalog the way the fading sunlight hit his profile. Tried. Failed. They talked about safe things. The house, the weather, Lily's plans to visit friends in San Francisco next month. Adrian mostly listened, asking occasional questions that suggested he was actually paying attention. But every time Elena looked up, she found him watching her. Not obviously. Not in a way Lily would notice, but in those micro moments between conversations. When attention drifted and guards dropped, she'd catch his gaze and feel that same electric recognition from the ballroom. "I should check on dinner," Lily said eventually, standing. "We're doing pasta. You staying, Dad?" "Can't. Conference call at 8. "Of course." Lily didn't quite roll her eyes, but it was close. She disappeared inside, leaving Elena and Adrian alone on the deck. The silence stretched. Not uncomfortable exactly, but charged. "She talks about you constantly," Adrian said finally. "I hope that's not annoying." "No, it's—" He paused, choosing words. "Good. That she has someone she trusts. She's easy to be friends with. She's easy to take advantage of." The shift in his tone made Elena's spine straighten. "I'm not— I know." He cut her off, but not unkindly. "I wasn't suggesting you were. I'm just— observant." "Paranoid?" His mouth curved. Actual smile this time, brief but real. Occupational hazard. What do you do? Elena asked. Lily's always vague about it. That's because what I do is boring to explain and impossible to romanticize. He took a sip of wine. I facilitate transactions, connect people who need things with people who have things, make sure everyone walks away satisfied. That's extremely vague. Yes. On purpose. Yes. Elena laughed despite herself. At least you're honest about being evasive. I'm always honest, Adrian said, and something in his delivery made it not a joke. Just selective about what I'm honest about. Before Elena could figure out how to respond to that, Lily's voice carried from inside. Elle, I need your opinion on garlic quantities. That's my cue, Elena said, standing. Adrian stood too. Polite. Automatic. The kind of old-fashioned gesture that should have felt performative, but instead felt genuine. Enjoy your evening, he said. You too. She made it 3 steps before his voice stopped her. Elena. She turned. He was still standing there, backlit by the dying sun, expression unreadable. Be careful here. Here? In general. Then he turned and walked inside, leaving her on the deck with more questions than answers and a pulse that had no business racing. Dinner was good. Lily made pasta with the kind of confidence that came from having been taught by actual Italian chefs during summer abroad programs. They ate on the deck, finished 2 bottles of wine between them, and laughed about stupid things their classmates had done. Normal. Easy. Except Elena kept catching herself listening for sounds from elsewhere in the house. Footsteps. Voices. Any indication of where Adrian was and what he was doing. Around 11, Lily yawned and declared herself dead on her feet. Beach run tomorrow? She asked, heading toward the stairs. Sure. Good night, superstar. Night. Elena should have gone to bed too. She was tired. The wine sat warm in her bloodstream. But something kept her on the deck, watching the ocean move under moonlight. She didn't hear him approach. One moment she was alone. The next, Adrian was there, leaning against the railing a careful distance away. Couldn't sleep? He asked. Haven't tried yet. Smart. This view's better than any dream. They stood in silence for a while. The ocean provided soundtrack, waves and wind and the occasional cry of a seabird settling in for the night. Can I ask you something? Elena said. You can ask. That's not the same as saying you'll answer. No, he agreed. It's not. She turned to face him properly. Why did you warn me earlier? To be careful. Adrian's expression didn't change. Because you strike me as someone who's worked very hard to build something. And sometimes, when we're close to getting what we want, we make decisions that undo all that work. That's pretty cryptic. Yes. Are you always this? She gestured vaguely. Whatever this is? Careful? Controlled. Something flickered across his face. Yes. Why? Because losing control has consequences. He said it simply, factually, like he was discussing the weather. And I don't enjoy consequences. Elena processed that. So you just, what? Never let yourself feel anything? I didn't say that. You implied it. I implied that I choose when and how I feel things. There's a difference. He pushed off the railing, turning to face her fully. You understand that. I can tell. How? Because you do the same thing. All that responsibility Lily mentioned. The jobs, the scholarships, the 5-year plans. That's not ambition. That's armor. He'd hit too close to something true. Elena felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the moonlight or the wine. You don't know me, she said. No, but I recognize the pattern. He took a step closer. Not threatening, just present. We're not that different, you and I. I think we're very different. In circumstances, yes. In motivation, he shook his head. We both know what it's like to build something from scratch. To understand that security isn't given, it's taken. To make choices other people don't have to make because the alternative is unacceptable. Elena's breath had gone shallow. She should step back, put distance between them, but her feet stayed planted. This is a bad idea, she said quietly. What is? This, whatever this is. Adrian's jaw tightened. For a long moment he just looked at her. Then, yes, it is. He turned and walked away. This time, Elena didn't watch him go. She gripped the railing and stared at the ocean and tried to remember all the very good reasons why she should pack her bag and leave in the morning. She didn't come up with a single one that felt more real than the weight of his gaze. Elena woke to sunlight cutting through sheer curtains and the distant sound of waves. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. Then the previous night assembled itself in her memory piece by piece, and she pressed her face into the pillow with a groan. She'd stayed on that deck for another hour after Adrian left, wrestling with thoughts that led nowhere good. Eventually, the cold drove her inside and up to bed, where she'd stared at the ceiling until exhaustion won. Her phone said 9:30. Late for her. She usually ran at 7, had coffee by 8, started her day with the kind of structured intention that kept chaos at bay. But this wasn't a normal morning. She found Lily in the kitchen, assembling what looked like an extremely ambitious breakfast spread. Eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, pastries that had definitely come from somewhere expensive. "Morning, sunshine," Lily called without turning around. "Coffee's ready? Mugs are in the cabinet by the fridge." Elena poured herself a cup and leaned against the counter, watching Lily work. "You didn't have to do all this." "I know, but I'm trying to convince you that staying here beats whatever sad desk lunch you'd be eating in your apartment." Lily slid scrambled eggs onto a plate. "Besides, cooking relaxes me. Eat." They settled at the kitchen island. The food was good, better than good. Lily had the kind of casual competence that came from never having to worry about the cost of ingredients or the time required to make them right. "Sleep okay?" Lily asked. "Yeah. You?" "Like the dead. This place always knocks me out. Something about the ocean air." She speared a strawberry. "I was thinking we could drive into town later. There's this little gallery I love, and they're doing a new exhibition. Unless you want to just beach it?" "Gallery sounds good." They spent the morning easy, lazy, the kind of unstructured time Elena usually struggled with but found herself sinking into. They walked the beach, collecting shells Lily insisted were good luck, sat on the deck reading books they'd both been meaning to get to, talked about everything and nothing. Adrian's presence, or absence, hung unspoken between them. His car was in the driveway, which meant he was somewhere in the house. Working, probably. Locked in whatever mysterious business consumed his days. Elena told herself she wasn't listening for him. She was absolutely listening for him. Around 2, they drove into Malibu proper. The gallery was small, tucked between a boutique and a coffee shop, showing local artists who'd figured out how to make the ocean look new. Lily moved through the space with the ease of someone comfortable in these environments, chatting with the owner like they were old friends. Elena trailed behind, half focused on the art, half lost in her own head. "You're quiet today," Lily observed when they stopped for coffee after. "Just thinking." "About?" "About your father. About the way he looked at me. About how I should leave before this becomes something I can't take back." "Work stuff," Elena said instead. "Trying to prepare mentally for Grayson." "You're going to be amazing at it. You know that, right?" Lily squeezed her hand across the table. "They're lucky to have you." "Thanks. I mean it. You're the smartest person I know, the most driven. Sometimes I think you're going to end up running the world, and I'll be that friend who knew you when." Elena laughed, but it felt hollow. "I just want to pay my bills and not panic about rent." "That's such bullshit. You want more than that. You've always wanted more." Lily leaned back in her chair. "Which is fine. Good even. Just don't pretend your ambitions are smaller than they are. Own it." The words sat uncomfortably. Maybe because they were true. Maybe because Elena had spent so long packaging her drive as practicality that she'd started believing her own narrative. They got back to the house around 6. Adrian's car was gone. "Guess Dad had a thing," Lily said, not sounding surprised. "Want to order in? There's this Thai place that delivers." "Sure." Dinner was good. They ate on the deck again, watching the sun set in shades of orange and pink that looked fake. Lily told stories about their classmates' post-graduation disasters, someone's internship that imploded in week 1, someone else's apartment that turned out to be half the size advertised. Normal friend things. Safe friend things. But when headlights swept across the driveway around 10, Elena's pulse jumped. Adrian came through the door looking tired. Not physically. His posture was still military straight, his expression still controlled, but something around his eyes suggested a long day doing difficult things. "Hey, Dad," Lily called from the couch where they'd relocated with wine and a movie neither was really watching. "Food's in the kitchen if you're hungry. Thanks." He set his keys on the entry table, shrugged out of his jacket. His eyes found Elena's, held for a beat, then moved away. "How was your day?" "Good. We hit that gallery I like, dragged Elena through my cultural enrichment agenda." "I'm sure she survived." Adrian moved toward the kitchen. Elena heard the fridge open, the sound of him moving around. Lily's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and made an annoyed sound. "It's Marcus. He's having a crisis about his lease. Do you mind if I—" "Go ahead," Elena said. Lily disappeared upstairs, phone already at her ear, leaving Elena alone on the couch with a half-full wine glass and the awareness that Adrian was 30 feet away. She should stay put, finish her wine, go to bed early. Instead, she found herself walking toward the kitchen. Adrian stood at the island, tie loosened, eating what looked like leftover pasta directly from a container, not bothering with a plate. It was weirdly humanizing. "Long day?" Elena asked. He glanced up. "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" "No?" "Fair enough." She leaned against the counter, maintaining distance. Adrian set down his fork, studying her with that unsettling focus. "You're still here," he said. "Lily invited me for the weekend." "That's not what I meant." Elena's stomach tightened. "Then what did you mean?" "I thought after last night you might decide this was a bad idea." "I did decide that." And yet. She met his gaze straight on. "Maybe I'm not great at following my own advice." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile. Something darker. "That makes two of us." The air between them felt charged, dangerous, like standing too close to a live wire. "This can't happen," Elena said quietly. "No. Lily would never forgive either of us." "Probably not." "So we're in agreement. Completely." But he was moving closer. Not dramatically, just a step. Then another, closing the distance in a way that felt inevitable. Elena's breath caught. "Adrian, tell me to stop." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I don't want you to." He was close enough now that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell whatever cologne he wore, something expensive and understated, could feel the heat radiating off him. "This is a mistake," he said. "I know. You should leave tomorrow. Make up an excuse." "I should." His hand came up, fingers brushing her jaw so lightly it might have been imagined. "But you're not going to." "No." The kiss, when it happened, wasn't gentle. There was nothing tentative about it. It was claim and surrender simultaneously, all the tension of the last week combusting into something that made rational thought impossible. Elena's hands fisted in his shirt. Adrian's fingers tangled in her hair. They kissed like they were both drowning, and this was air. Somewhere upstairs, a door opened. They broke apart like they'd been shocked. Adrian stepped back, running a hand through his hair. Elena gripped the counter, trying to remember how breathing worked. "I should go," she managed. "Yes." She made it to the hallway before his voice stopped her. "Elena." She didn't turn around. Couldn't. "This doesn't happen again," he said. "No." "I mean it." "So do I." She went upstairs on legs that felt uncertain. Lily was still on her phone, pacing her room, deep in whatever crisis Marcus had manufactured. Elena slipped into her own room and closed the door. Then she sat on the bed and tried to figure out what the hell she'd just done. The next morning arrived with fog and Elena's determination to leave. She'd made up her mind somewhere around 3 a.m., after hours of staring at the ceiling and cataloging every reason this was unsustainable. She'd make an excuse. Family thing. Work thing. Any plausible reason to extract herself before the situation evolved into something even more catastrophically stupid. But when she came downstairs with her bag half packed, she found Adrian in the kitchen, alone. "Lily went for a run," he said without looking up from his coffee. "She'll be back in an hour." Elena set her bag down. "I was going to—" "I know what you were going to do." Now he did look at her. "Don't. This isn't smart." "No." But leaving won't undo last night. It'll just make it obvious something happened. He had a point. Elena hated that he had a point. So what do we do? She asked. We act like adults. We spend the weekend being civil and appropriate. Then you go back to your life and I go back to mine and we forget this happened. You think we can do that? We don't have a choice. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to point out that they absolutely had choices, just none that felt acceptable. But Adrian's expression had gone carefully blank, that controlled mask he wore so well. Coffee's fresh, he said, turning back to his cup. Help yourself. The weekend proceeded in a kind of careful choreography. They were never alone again. Lily's presence created a buffer that kept conversations surface level and interactions brief. Adrian spent most of Sunday in his study. Elena and Lily drove up the coast, had lunch in Santa Barbara, came back sunburned and full of fried seafood. Normal. Fine. Except every time Elena and Adrian ended up in the same room, the air felt thin. Sunday night, Lily announced she was driving back to her apartment in West Hollywood in the morning. You need a ride? She asked Elena. That'd be great. Perfect. We can stop for breakfast on the way. Elena packed that night, folding clothes with more care than necessary. Tomorrow she'd leave, resume her normal life, start preparing for Grayson. Put this whole weekend in a box labeled Mistakes I'll Never Repeat. She was stuffing her toiletries into a bag when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello? It's Adrian. His voice came through low, careful. Don't react. Lily's downstairs. Elena's heart kicked. How did you get this number? Does it matter? Kind of. I have resources. Listen, I have a proposition. I don't think... Just listen. He paused. I run a consulting firm, technically legitimate. We handle business transactions, facilitate deals, manage complex logistics. I need someone with legal background, someone smart, someone I can trust. Elena sat on the bed. You're offering me a job? Yes. That's insane. Probably. I already accepted Grayson. Defer. Tell them you had another opportunity. They'll understand. Why would I do that? The silence stretched long enough that she thought he'd hung up. Then, because the salary's better, the work's more interesting, and because I think you're tired of playing it safe. You don't know me well enough to think that. Don't I? His voice dropped lower. You spent 4 years doing everything right, following every rule, building the perfect resume, and you're about to walk into a job that'll give you exactly what you planned for. Comfortable, predictable, safe. There's nothing wrong with safe. No, but there's nothing exciting about it either. Elena's fingers tightened on the phone. This is about last night. This is about recognizing talent when I see it. Bullshit. Partially, he conceded. But the offer's real. Think about it. I don't need to think about it. The answer's no. Okay. Okay? You said no, I heard you. He paused. But if you change your mind, the position's open. We're in Century City, 10th floor, Wilshire and Westwood. The company's called Meridian Associates. I'm not going to change my mind. Then you have nothing to worry about. He hung up before she could respond. Elena stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she pulled up Google and typed in Meridian Associates Century City. The website was sleek, professional, deliberately vague about specifics. Business consulting, international logistics, strategic partnerships. All the corporate buzzwords that meant everything and nothing. The staff page showed Adrian's photo, professional headshot, neutral expression, CEO, and founder. Below him were several other executives, their credentials listed in neat bullet points. It looked legitimate. Probably was legitimate. That didn't mean working there was a good idea. Elena closed the browser and finished packing. Monday morning, Lily drove them back to LA with the windows down and music too loud for meaningful conversation. Which was fine. Elena didn't trust herself to talk anyway. They stopped at a diner in Santa Monica, ordered pancakes and eggs and coffee strong enough to strip paint. Lily talked about her upcoming trip to San Francisco, about maybe getting a dog, about how weird it felt to have no structure. What about you? She asked eventually. Nervous about Grayson? A little. You'll kill it, seriously. 6 months in, you'll be running the place. Elena smiled because it was expected, but her mind was elsewhere, stuck on Adrian's voice on the phone, on an offer that made no sense and perfect sense simultaneously. Lily dropped her at her Westwood apartment around 1. They hugged goodbye, promised to get dinner soon, did all the normal friend rituals. Then Elena was alone in her half-packed apartment with 6 weeks until she started at Grayson, and a decision she'd already made but couldn't quite commit to. She spent Tuesday applying to apartments, Wednesday organizing her files, Thursday running errands she'd been putting off for months. Normal productive things. But Friday morning, she found herself in her car, driving toward Century City, Brighton. Just to look, she told herself. Just to see the building, satisfy her curiosity. Then she'd go home and forget this whole stupid idea. The Meridian Associates offices occupied the 10th floor of a steel and glass tower on Wilshire. Elena stood in the lobby, staring at the directory, feeling ridiculous. She should leave. Instead, she got in the elevator. The 10th floor reception area was all modern minimalism, clean lines, expensive furniture, a view that probably cost extra. A woman at the desk looked up with a professional smile. "Can I help you?" Elena paused. "I have a meeting with Adrian Vaughn." It was a lie. She didn't have a meeting. She'd show up unannounced like some kind of stalker. But the receptionist just checked her computer and nodded. "Your name?" "Elena Carter." "One moment." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, hung up. "He'll be right out." Elena's stomach dropped. She'd expected to be turned away, given a card and told to make an appointment, not Elena. She turned. Adrian stood in the hallway leading back to the offices, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His expression gave away nothing. "This is a surprise," he said. "I was in the area." "No, you weren't." "No, I wasn't." His mouth almost smiled. "Come back to my office." She followed him down a hallway lined with glass-walled conference rooms and closed doors. His office sat at the corner. Massive windows on 2 sides. Furniture that managed to look comfortable and expensive simultaneously. He closed the door behind them. "So," he said, "you're in the area." "I wanted to see it, the company, make sure it was real." "And?" "It's real." "Disappointed?" "I don't know." Elena moved to the windows, looking out at the LA sprawl. "What do you actually do here, Adrian? And don't give me the corporate speak." He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "We facilitate transactions that require discretion. We connect people who need things with people who have things. Sometimes that's legal consulting. Sometimes it's logistics. Sometimes it's information. That's still vague." "Yes." "On purpose." "Yes." She turned to face him. "Are you asking me to do anything illegal?" "No." "Would you tell me if you were?" "Probably not. But I'm not." He leaned against his desk. "The position I'm offering is exactly what I said. Legal consultation, contract review, compliance oversight. Boring, legitimate, well-compensated work." "Then why me? You could hire any lawyer in LA." "Because most lawyers in LA ask too many questions or not enough. You'd ask exactly the right ones." "That's not an answer." "No. The answer is that I think you're wasted at a place like Grayson. You're smart enough to do better, bold enough to want more, and pragmatic enough to recognize opportunity when it's in front of you." Elena processed that. "What's the salary?" He named a figure that made her blink. "That's competitive," he finished. "Plus benefits, plus performance bonuses that can double your base if you hit targets." It was more than competitive, it was obscene. "And you're offering this because you think I'm qualified?" "Yes." "Not because we—" "No." He cut her off firmly. "What happened at the beach house was a mistake. We agreed on that. This is separate. Business." "Can it be? Separate?" "It has to be." Elena looked at him, really looked, at the controlled expression, the careful distance he was maintaining, the way he was giving her every logical reason to say yes, while ignoring the only reason that mattered. "I need to think about it," she said. "Of course. I'm not saying yes. I understand. But I'm not saying no." Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. or satisfaction? That's all I'm asking. Key. Elena called Grayson that afternoon, explained that she'd received another offer, asked if they'd be willing to let her defer her start date while she explored it. They were gracious about it, disappointed but understanding. The position would be there if she decided to come back. She signed the Meridian contract on Monday, started the following week. The work was exactly what Adrian had described: contract review, compliance checks, legal consultation on deals she didn't fully understand. It was legitimate, boring even. But working 30 feet from Adrian Vaughn was anything but boring. They were professional, careful. They didn't take lunch together or linger in conversations. In meetings, he treated her exactly like the other junior associates. But sometimes, when she was deep in a contract and looked up, she'd find him watching her through his office window. And sometimes, when everyone else had left and she was working late, he'd stop by her desk. "Making progress?" he'd ask. Slowly. "You're doing well." "How would you know? You barely look at my work." "I look." He'd pause. "You should go home. Get some rest." "I could say the same to you. I don't sleep much." "Neither do I lately." The subtext hung heavy between them. All the things they weren't saying, couldn't say. Then he'd leave, and Elena would stare at her computer screen and wonder how long they could sustain this before something broke. The answer came 3 weeks in. Late night, empty office. Elena was reviewing a supply chain agreement that made no sense, trying to figure out why a produce distributor needed this many liability clauses. "You're going to give yourself a headache." She looked up. Adrian stood in her doorway, tie gone, shirt sleeves rolled up. "This contract is insane," she said. "Which one?" "Castellano. The liability structure doesn't match the business model." "That's because the business model isn't what's in the prospectus." Elena sat back. "Should I be concerned about that?" "No, it's clean, just layered." "Layered." "Some clients prefer their transactions compartmentalized." That sounds like a nice way of saying something I shouldn't ask about. Adrian almost smiled. "You're learning." He moved into her office, around her desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne again, that same expensive, understated scent that had been haunting her for weeks. "You should go home," he said quietly. "So should you." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because if I go home, I'll just think about you. At least here I can pretend I'm working." The admission landed like a physical thing. Elena's breath caught. "Adrian, I know. This is exactly what we said wouldn't happen." He was close enough now that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "But I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop watching you. Can't stop wanting—" She kissed him. Or he kissed her. Later, she wouldn't be able to say who moved first. Just that one moment they were separate and the next they weren't. And this kiss was different from the one in Malibu. Slower. Deeper. Like they'd both stopped fighting something inevitable. Adrian's hands framed her face. Elena's fingers twisted in his shirt. They kissed until the office felt too small, the air too thin. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. "We can't do this here," he said. "No, come home with me." It wasn't a question. Not really. "Okay," Elena breathed. They left separately, professional to the end. He took his car from the executive garage. She took hers from the visitor lot. They didn't discuss where they were going. But when Elena pulled up to the address, he'd texted her. A modern house in the Hollywood Hills with views that stretched to the ocean. Adrian was waiting at the door. And this time, when he pulled her inside, there was no Lily to interrupt. No pretense of professionalism. No more reasons to stop. Just the two of them and a decision they'd both already made, whether they admitted it or not. Adrian's house was all glass and steel angles, cantilevered over the hills like it was defying gravity. Inside, everything was clean lines and expensive restraint, the kind of space that looked designed rather than lived in. Elena barely registered any of it. They made it as far as the living room before Adrian's mouth found hers again, and this time there was no hesitation, no careful distance. Just want stripped down to its most basic form. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer. She could feel his heart hammering against her palm, where it pressed to his chest. For someone who lived his entire life in control, he kissed like he was trying to lose it. Upstairs, he managed between kisses. Okay. But neither of them moved. They stayed locked together in the dark living room with the city lights spreading below them like scattered diamonds, kissing until Elena's lungs burned and her thoughts went hazy. When they finally made it to his bedroom, Adrian pulled back just enough to look at her. Really look at her. His pupils were blown wide, his carefully styled hair messed where her fingers had run through it. Last chance, he said, voice rough. You can still walk away from this. So can you. That's not what I'm asking. Elena reached up, traced the line of his jaw. I don't want to walk away. Something in his expression cracked. Relief or surrender or both. Then his mouth was on hers again, and they were moving backward toward the bed, shedding clothes in a trail across expensive carpet. The sex was not gentle. There was too much tension built up, too many weeks of careful avoidance combusting all at once. Adrian was demanding in bed the same way he was demanding everywhere else, but Elena met him stroke for stroke, refusing to be passive. At some point, during the quiet that felt louder than the chaos, he rolled onto his back and stared at the ceiling. We're going to regret this, he said. Elena turned her head on the pillow to look at him. Probably. Lily can't know. I know. I'm serious, Elena. She can't. He stopped, jaw tight. She's the only family I have that matters. I won't lose her over this. Then what are we doing? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. I don't know. It should have hurt. Maybe it did. But Elena was too wrung out to parse her own emotions clearly. I should go, she said. You should. But his hand found hers under the sheets, fingers threading through hers, and neither of them moved. Elena woke alone. Sunlight streamed through windows she didn't remember opening. For a disoriented second, she thought she was back in the Malibu beach house. Then the previous night assembled itself and her stomach dropped. She found her clothes scattered across the floor, got dressed quickly, feeling exposed in the morning light. The house was silent. No sounds of movement. No indication where Adrian had gone. She found him in the kitchen, already dressed in slacks and a fresh shirt, drinking coffee and reading something on his tablet like this was any other morning. There's coffee, he said without looking up. Elena poured herself a cup, added cream from the fridge. The silence stretched awkward. I should get going, she said finally. Probably smart. He set down the tablet. We need to establish ground rules. Rules? At the office, we're professional, completely. No lingering looks, no private meetings unless they're work-related, nothing that would make anyone suspicious. Okay. Outside the office, he paused, choosing words carefully. Outside the office, this can continue if you want it to, but it stays private. No public appearances, no restaurants where we might run into people we know, and absolutely nothing that gets back to Lily. Elena set down her cup. So I'm your secret. We're each other's secret. That's not the same thing, and you know it. Adrian's expression hardened. You want different terms. Name them. But those are mine. She should have been angry, should have told him to go to hell and walked out. But the problem was, she understood his logic, saw the impossible position they were both in. Fine, she said. Fine. Your rules. I agree to them. Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe. Or disappointment that she hadn't fought harder. I'll see you at the office Monday, he said. It was a dismissal. Elena took it, got in her car, drove back to her apartment, and spent the weekend trying to convince herself she hadn't just made a catastrophic mistake. Monday at Meridian was exactly as Adrian had outlined. Professional, distant. He passed her in the hallway with a nod that could have been for anyone. In the afternoon meeting about a new client acquisition, he asked her opinion on liability structures without any hint of familiarity. It should have been fine. It was fine. Except Elena kept catching herself watching him when she shouldn't, noticing things she had no business noticing. The way he rubbed his temple when he was frustrated, how his jaw tightened when someone challenged his decisions, the subtle tells that betrayed emotion in someone who'd built a career on showing none. You settling in okay? Elena looked up from her desk to find Marcus Chen. Yes, that Marcus, her UCLA classmate, who apparently also worked at Meridian now, leaning against her doorframe. When did you start here? She asked. 2 months ago. Didn't Lily tell you? He came into her office, dropped into the chair across from her desk. I'm in operations. Basically, I make sure shipments go where they're supposed to go, and nobody asks too many questions about what's in them. That sounds ominous. It's mostly boring. Computer parts, industrial equipment. Occasionally, we handle art acquisitions for private collectors. He shrugged. The pay's insane and the work's not hard. I'm not complaining. Does Lily know you work here? I don't think so. We haven't really talked since graduation. He studied her with open curiosity. How'd you end up at Meridian? Last I heard, you were headed to Grayson. Got a better offer. From Vaughn directly? Something in his tone made Elena's instincts prickle. Why? No reason, just he doesn't usually recruit personally. He's got HR people for that. Marcus leaned back in his chair. But I guess if you're Lily's best friend, that's different. Built-in trust factor. I guess. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important before Marcus headed back to his own office. But the conversation stuck with Elena. The implication that Adrian had hired her specifically because of her connection to Lily felt uncomfortable in ways she couldn't articulate. That night, her phone rang around 11. Adrian's number. Can you talk? He asked. Yeah? I'm sending a car. Be downstairs in 20 minutes. He hung up before she could respond. Elena stared at her phone, irritation and anticipation warring in her chest. She should call him back. Tell him she wasn't some employee he could summon. Establish her own boundaries since he was so fond of rules. Instead, she changed clothes and went downstairs. The car was a black sedan with tinted windows. The driver didn't speak, just pulled into traffic and headed toward the hills. They ended up at Adrian's house again. He was waiting at the door. You can't just summon me, Elena said, brushing past him into the house. I didn't summon you. I offered you a ride. Semantics. Important ones. He closed the door. Could have said no. Could I? Yes. His expression was unreadable. You can always say no to me, Elena. That's not negotiable. Some of her anger deflated. She moved into the living room, looking out at the city lights she was starting to recognize. Why am I here? She asked. Because I wanted to see you. Because pretending you don't exist at the office is harder than I thought it would be. Because he stopped, jaw tight. Because I'm not good at this. At what? Whatever this is. Elena turned to face him. Maybe we need to define what this is. It's temporary. Is it? It has to be. But he was moving toward her, that same gravitational pull that had drawn them together from the first night. This doesn't end well, you know that. Then why are we doing it? Because some mistakes are worth making. He kissed her, and Elena stopped trying to logic her way through something that had never been about logic. They ended up in his bed again, and this time it was slower, less frantic, like they were trying to memorize something they both knew wouldn't last. After, lying in the dark with Adrian's arm around her waist, Elena let herself ask the question that had been building. What do you actually do, Adrian? The real answer. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't respond. Then, I facilitate business for people who can't use traditional channels. Because it's illegal? Because it's complicated. Sometimes that means skirting regulations. Sometimes it means operating in gray areas. Sometimes it's completely above board, just private. And the mafia thing? His body went rigid. What mafia thing? Lily mentioned once that some people think you have organized crime connections. She laughed it off, but you're wondering if it's true. He sat up, putting distance between them. And if it is, does that change things? I don't know, does it? Adrian stood, pulled on his pants. I'm not going to lie to you. Some of my business associates are not people you'd want to meet in a dark alley. Some of the transactions I facilitate exist in legal gray areas, but I don't run a criminal organization. I don't traffic in anything that genuinely harms people. And I'm very, very good at making sure nothing traces back to me or anyone in my organization. Elena processed that. So you're saying you're legitimately illegitimate? I'm saying I operate in the spaces where legitimate business can't or won't go. That doesn't make me a mobster. It makes me practical. And your employees, do they know? The ones who need to know, know. The ones who don't, stay blissfully ignorant doing their compliance reviews and contract analysis. He looked at her directly. You want to know which category you're in? Yes? Right now, you're in the second category, but that can change if you want it to. Elena sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. What would that look like? It would look like me trusting you with information that could destroy me, and you deciding whether that's a responsibility you want. And if I say no, then nothing changes. You keep doing the work you're doing. You keep getting paid extremely well for it. And we continue whatever this is until it runs its course. You make it sound so transactional, isn't it? But his expression suggested he didn't believe that any more than she did. Elena stood, started gathering her clothes. I need to think. About what? Whether you want to know the truth? About whether I can handle it. She pulled on her shirt. You're asking me to choose between ignorance and complicity. Those aren't great options. No, but they're honest ones. She finished dressing in silence. Adrian called the car, waited with her in the living room until the driver texted that he was outside. At the door, Elena turned back. Do you ever regret it? The choices that brought you here? Every day. His expression was carved from stone. But regret doesn't change anything. It just makes you softer than you can afford to be. The next 3 weeks fell into a pattern. Professional distance at Meridian, late-night calls that led to Adrian's house, and conversations that felt more dangerous than the sex. Slowly, carefully, he began telling her things about how he'd built Meridian from nothing after his wife died, about the connections he'd made in those early desperate years when money was scarce and morals were negotiable, about the empire he'd constructed that lived in the shadows of legitimate business. I don't deal drugs, he told her one night. I don't traffic people. I don't fund terrorism or weapons manufacturing. Those are my lines. But you do other things. Yes. Like what? Like moving money for people who can't use banks, facilitating acquisitions that don't want regulatory oversight, connecting buyers and sellers who operate outside traditional markets. Elena sat cross-legged on his bed, wearing his shirt, trying to reconcile this with the man who'd hired her. And you're telling me this because? Because if this continues, you deserve to know what you're involved in, and because... He paused. Because I'm tired of keeping you at arm's length when you're already inside my defenses. It was the closest thing to a confession she'd gotten from him. Elena reached across the space between them, laced her fingers through his. I'm not going to judge you, she said quietly. You should. But I'm not. She met his eyes. We all make compromises to survive. Yours are just more visible than most people's. Something in his expression cracked. He pulled her across the bed, kissed her like she'd given him something he hadn't known he needed. You're dangerous, he murmured against her mouth. So are you. That's why this works. Except it was working too well. Elena could feel herself getting tangled in something that went beyond attraction. She looked forward to their nights together in ways that had nothing to do with sex, found herself checking her phone obsessively at the office, waiting for his messages, noticed the way her chest tightened when he walked past her desk without acknowledgement. This was supposed to be temporary, contained. It was becoming neither. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Elena was working late, actually working, reviewing a contract for a shipping company that moved electronics between Hong Kong and Long Beach. Something about the liability clauses nagged at her. The structure was too complicated for the stated cargo. She pulled up the client file, cross-referenced it with other transactions, found 3 similar deals in the last 6 months, all routed through subsidiary companies that traced back to the same parent corporation. Her office door opened. Adrian. You're still here, he said. So are you. She gestured to her screen. Can I ask you something about the Castellano account? His expression shuddered. What about it? The cargo declarations don't match the liability structure. Either they're shipping something more valuable than computer components, or they're shipping something that requires extra insurance. He came around her desk, looked at her screen. This is what I meant about gray areas. What are they actually shipping? Semiconductors, high-end processors that are technically export-controlled to certain countries. Castellano moves them through intermediary markets where the regulations are looser. That sounds illegal. It's not. Technically. They're sold to legitimate buyers in approved countries. What happens after that is outside our purview. Elena sat back. You're laundering electronics. I'm facilitating legitimate business transactions that happen to benefit from creative routing. That's laundering with extra steps. Adrian's jaw tightened. Are you saying you have a problem with this? I'm saying I need to know what I'm signing off on. You're signing off on contracts that comply with U.S. law. Everything else is between Castellano and their conscience. Except you know what they're doing. You're enabling it. Yes? No hesitation, no apology. That's what I do, Elena. I thought I'd been clear about that. They stared at each other. The office suddenly felt too small. This is different than abstract conversations at your house, Elena said finally. This is me actively participating. Yes. And if I'm not comfortable with that? Adrian's expression went carefully blank. Then you resign. I'll write you a recommendation letter that'll get you into any firm in LA. We'll end this professionally and you'll walk away clean. Just like that. Just like that. Elena's chest felt tight. And us? There is no us if you're not at Meridian. You know that. Because it's too complicated. Because it's too dangerous. He moved away from her desk, putting physical distance between them. I told you from the beginning this was temporary, that there were lines we couldn't cross. You working here was already crossing several of them. If you leave, we're done. Yes. The word landed like a physical blow. Elena stood, needing to move. So my choices are complicity or losing you. Those were always your choices. I just didn't force you to acknowledge them until now. That's not fair. No, but it's honest. His voice was flat, controlled. Every emotion locked away behind walls she'd thought she'd started to breach. You need to decide what you can live with, Elena. And you need to decide it soon because I can't keep doing this if you're going to second-guess everything. So I don't get time to process, to think about what this means? Take all the time you need, but until you decide, we're done with the personal side. Professional only. Elena felt something crack in her chest. You're really going to shut me out over this. I'm protecting us both because the alternative is you getting in deeper than you can handle and ending up destroyed when it inevitably falls apart. You don't get to decide what I can handle. Then prove it. He met her eyes directly. Decide whether you can work here knowing what you know. Decide whether what we have is worth the moral compromise. Decide whether I'm worth it. The silence stretched between them. Heavy. Suffocating. I need to go, Elena said. Yeah, you do. She gathered her things with shaking hands, walked past him without another word, made it to her car before the tears started. She'd known this was coming, had seen it approaching like headlights on a dark road, but knowing something and experiencing it were different things entirely. Elena sat in her car in the parking garage and tried to figure out who she was becoming. The girl who'd graduated top of her class with a 5-year plan would have walked away without hesitation, would have seen this for exactly what it was, a compromise too far. But that girl had never met Adrian Vaughn, had never felt what it was like to be seen completely and wanted anyway, had never had to choose between the person she'd planned to be and the person she was actually becoming. Her phone buzzed. Lily's name lit up the screen. Hey, Elena answered, voice rough. Hey yourself, I'm back from San Francisco. Want to grab dinner tomorrow? I have so much to tell you. Normal friend things, safe friend things, the life Elena could still have if she walked away. Yeah, she managed. Dinner sounds good. Perfect. I'll text you details. Lily paused. You okay? You sound weird. Just tired. Well, sleep. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you. Love you too. Elena hung up and stared at her phone, at the messages underneath Lily's name. 3 from Adrian over the past week. Professional. Careful. Nothing that would suggest anything inappropriate. She scrolled up. Found the first message he'd ever sent her. The job offer. The beginning of everything. Her finger hovered over his contact. She could call him, go back upstairs, tell him she'd made her choice. But she didn't know what that choice was yet. So she started her car and drove home and spent the night staring at her ceiling, trying to figure out who she wanted to be and whether that person could exist in Adrian Vaughn's world. Dinner with Lily was at a bistro in West Hollywood that Elena had been to 100 times. Comfortable. Familiar. The kind of place where you could talk for hours without anyone rushing you out. Lily looked good, tanned from San Francisco, relaxed in a way she never quite managed in LA. She ordered wine without looking at the menu and launched into stories about her trip before the server even left. So I met this guy, she said, eyes bright. Gabriel. He's in tech, which I know sounds boring, but he's actually interesting. Takes photos, travels constantly, has this whole philosophy about experiencing things instead of accumulating them. Sounds very California, right? But in a good way. We spent 3 days just walking around the city. No plan, no agenda. It was, she paused, searching for words. It felt easy, you know? Elena smiled because it was expected. I'm happy for you. Don't be happy yet. He lives in San Francisco. I live here. We're doing the whole let's see where this goes thing. Lily took a sip of wine. But enough about me. How's work? How's Meridian treating you? It's fine. Just fine? The work's good, challenging, better than Grayson would have been. Lily studied her with the kind of attention that came from 4 years of friendship. You look tired. I've been working a lot. That's not what I mean. She leaned forward. You look tired in that specific way that means something's wrong and you're not talking about it. Elena's chest tightened. It's nothing. Bullshit. Come on, what's going on? For a wild second, Elena considered telling her everything. About Adrian. About the impossible situation she'd found herself in. About how she was falling for a man she had no business wanting while working for a company that operated in moral gray areas she was still trying to map. But the words stuck in her throat. Just adjustment stuff, she said instead. New job. New environment. It's a lot. Lily didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. They ordered food, talked about safer things. Lily's upcoming birthday party. A mutual friend's engagement. The rising cost of rent in LA and whether they should consider roommates again. Normal. Easy. Except Elena felt like she was watching the conversation from a distance, like she'd split into two people. The one sitting across from Lily, smiling and nodding, and the one still in Adrian's office, making impossible choices. Oh, I almost forgot, Lily said as their entrees arrived. Dad mentioned you're doing really well at Meridian. He never compliments people, so that's basically him giving you a medal. Elena's fork froze halfway to her mouth. He said that? Yeah. I was on the phone with him yesterday and he brought it up. Said you were sharp, asked good questions, caught things other people missed. Lily grinned. I told him I could have told him that 4 years ago if he'd asked. When was this? Yesterday afternoon. Why? After their fight. After he'd told her to decide whether she could handle this. After he'd shut her out completely. And he'd called Lily and complimented Elena's work like nothing had happened. No reason, Elena managed. Just surprised he noticed. Dad notices everything. It's his superpower, or his curse. I haven't decided which. They finished dinner, hugged goodbye on the sidewalk. Promised to do this again soon. Then Elena sat in her car and pulled out her phone. She stared at Adrian's contact for a long moment before typing, "We need to talk." His response came 30 seconds later. My house. 1 hour. Adrian answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, looking more human than Elena had ever seen him at the office. His hair was slightly messy. No shoes. It was disarming. Come in, he said. Elena followed him to the living room. He'd been working, laptop open on the coffee table, papers spread across the couch, a glass of whiskey sweating a ring onto a side table. Lily said you told her I was doing well, Elena said without preamble. You are. That's not the point. Then what is? The point is you told me we were done on the personal side, professional only. Then you called your daughter and praised me like what? Like I'm just another employee you're managing? Adrian picked up his whiskey, took a slow sip. You're just another employee. Bullshit. Professionally, yes. That's what I told you. Keep it separate. You can't compartmentalize people like that. I've been doing it for 20 years. Elena wanted to throw something. Well, I can't. I can't sit across from Lily and pretend everything's normal while I'm sleeping with her father and working for a company that facilitates God knows what illegal transactions. Then quit. He set down his glass with controlled precision. I already told you that option's available. And I told you that's not a real choice. Why not? Because... She stopped, took a breath. Because I don't want to quit. I don't want to walk away from this. From you. Even though I should. Even though every rational part of my brain is screaming that this is unsustainable. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Then what do you want? I want honesty. I want to know what I'm actually involved in. I want... She met his eyes. I want to stop feeling like I'm standing on the edge of something I don't understand. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured to the couch. Sit. Elena sat. He settled beside her, not touching, maintaining that careful distance he was so good at. The Castellano account, he started, is exactly what I told you. We facilitate the movement of export-controlled electronics through intermediary markets. Most of it ends up in countries that have technology restrictions. We don't handle the actual smuggling, we just make sure the paperwork looks clean enough that no one asks hard questions. How is that not illegal? Because we're technically in compliance with US law. The buyers are legitimate companies in approved countries. What they do with the goods after purchase isn't our liability. That's a technicality. Yes, that's how most of international business works, technicalities and plausible deniability. Elena processed that. What else? We move money, a lot of money, for clients who can't use traditional banking because of sanctions or regulatory oversight. We do it through layered transactions that are technically legitimate but functionally serve as laundering. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman who operates in the spaces where law and ethics diverge. He looked at her directly. I don't hurt people, Elena. I don't traffic in human suffering, but I do help wealthy people avoid regulations designed to limit their wealth. I facilitate transactions that governments would rather not happen, and I profit enormously from it. And you sleep fine at night? No. But I slept poorly when I was broke too. At least now I have comfortable insomnia. Despite everything, Elena almost laughed. That's a terrible justification. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm trying to be honest about what it is. He shifted, angling toward her. You want to know what you're involved in? Fine. About 60% of Meridian's business is completely legitimate. Standard consulting, logistics, legal work. The other 40% lives in gray areas, transactions that aren't strictly illegal but aren't exactly clean either. Your job is in the 60%. You review contracts, ensure compliance with stated regulations, flag potential liabilities. Nothing you do directly participates in the questionable side, but I'm enabling it by being here. Yes, the same way every employee at a bank enables predatory lending practices. The same way everyone who pays taxes enables military actions they might find morally questionable. Complicity is a spectrum, Elena. You're much further from the dark end than you think. Elena stood, needing to move. She crossed to the windows, looking out at the city lights. I should walk away. Probably. A better person would. Maybe. Or maybe a better person would recognize that moral purity is a luxury most people can't afford. She turned to face him. Is that what you tell yourself? Every day. He stood too, closing the distance between them. I'm not a good man, Elena. I've done things I'm not proud of, made choices that kept me awake for months, built an empire on compromises that would disgust most people. But I'm honest about what I am. I don't pretend to be something cleaner. And what are you? Pragmatic, ruthless when necessary, loyal to the people I choose to protect. His hand came up, fingers brushing her jaw in a gesture that was becoming familiar. And completely compromised when it comes to you. Elena's breath caught. Don't. Don't what? Don't say things like that when we're talking about why this can't work. I thought we were talking about whether you can handle what Meridian actually is. Same conversation. No, it's not. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You can work at Meridian and maintain enough distance from the questionable parts to sleep at night. I'll make sure of it. But whether we continue personally, that's separate, harder, and entirely your choice. You said we were done. I said we were done until you decided what you could live with. Have you? Elena looked at him, really looked, at the man who'd built an empire in shadows, who'd given her brutal honesty when prettied lies would have been easier, who looked at her like she was the one thing in his carefully controlled world that he couldn't manage. I can live with the work, she said quietly. I can accept that nothing's as clean as I thought it would be. That success requires compromise, that the line between legal and ethical isn't always the same. And the rest? The rest scares me. It should. His hand dropped, but he didn't step back. This doesn't end well for us. You know that. So you keep saying, but you're still here. So are you. Adrian's jaw tightened. For a long moment they just stood there, close enough to touch, both waiting for the other to make the decision. Then Elena closed the distance and kissed him. It was different this time, slower, less about desperation and more about choice. She was choosing this, choosing him, with full knowledge of what it meant and what it would cost. When they broke apart, Adrian's forehead rested against hers. "You're sure?" he asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway. That's possibly the worst reasoning I've ever heard." "You're not exactly the poster child for good decisions." His mouth curved, almost a smile. Fair point. They ended up in his bed again, and this time when Elena woke in the morning, Adrian was still there. Asleep beside her, one arm thrown across her waist, looking younger without the weight of consciousness. She lay there watching him, trying to memorize this. The quiet, the warmth, the brief illusion that this could be something simple. His eyes opened, caught her watching. "You're staring," he murmured. "You're worth staring at." Flattery this early is suspicious. It's not flattery. It's observation. Adrian pulled her closer, tucking her against his chest. "We should talk about logistics." "Now?" "Before this gets more complicated." His hand traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. "At the office, nothing changes. We're professional, separate. No one can know." "I know." "Outside the office, we're discreet. No public dates. No restaurants where we might run into people. And Lily absolutely cannot find out." "You've mentioned that." "Because it's non-negotiable. If she finds out, I lose my best friend and you lose your daughter. I understand the stakes, Adrian." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry this has to be hidden." "Are you? Or is that just what you think you're supposed to say?" "Both." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You deserve better than secrets." "Maybe, but apparently I have terrible taste." That got an actual laugh from him. Low and rough, but real. Elena felt it vibrate through his chest and committed the sound to memory. They stayed like that until reality intruded in the form of work and responsibility. Then Elena went home to change and Adrian headed to the office early, and they fell back into the careful dance they'd established. The next month passed in a blur of double lives. At Meridian, Elena was the competent junior associate who asked smart questions and caught contract errors before they became problems. She attended meetings, reviewed documents, built relationships with other employees who had no idea she was sleeping with their boss. Marcus became something like a work friend. They grabbed lunch occasionally, complained about demanding clients, swapped stories about their UCLA days. He never asked about her relationship with Adrian, never seemed to notice anything unusual. Elena wondered if that made him oblivious or smart enough to play dumb. The work itself was exactly as Adrian had described, mostly legitimate with occasional detours into ethical ambiguity. She learned to recognize the patterns, which clients required extra scrutiny, which contracts hid their true purpose in careful wording, which transactions existed solely on paper. She also learned where her own lines were. She wouldn't participate in anything involving weapons, wouldn't sign off on deals that facilitated human rights violations, wouldn't compromise on environmental regulations no matter how much money was involved. Adrian didn't push. He seemed to respect her boundaries, routing the more questionable work to other associates while giving her the projects that fell in her comfort zone. "You're being too lenient with me," she told him one night at his house. "I'm being practical. You're more valuable to me if you're not morally conflicted about every assignment." "That's very calculating." "That's very me." Outside work, they fell into something that almost resembled a relationship. Nights at his house, conversations that went deeper than either probably intended, sex that was getting dangerously intimate. Elena learned things, that Adrian took his coffee black and hated mornings, that he'd met his late wife in college and married her 2 weeks after graduation, that she'd died in a car accident when Lily was 8, and he'd never seriously dated anyone since. "Until you," he said one night, the words slipping out like a confession he hadn't meant to make. "This isn't dating. No, it's something more complicated." Elena was lying on his chest, tracing the lines of muscle with one finger. "Do you regret it? Her dying?" "Every day. She was good. Actually good, not just surface level nice. She made me better." "What happened after?" "I got worse. started making money in ways she would have hated, built Meridian into something that would have horrified her. His hand moved through Elena's hair, rhythmic and soothing. Lily's the only piece of that life I have left. That's why I can't lose her. You won't. You don't know that. No, but I know her. She's more understanding than you give her credit for. Not about this. His voice went hard. There are some betrayals you don't come back from. Elena wanted to argue, to point out that they were both adults making adult decisions, that Lily would understand eventually. But deep down, she wasn't sure she believed it either. The cracks started showing in week 6. Lily called, excited about her birthday party coming up. It's going to be low-key, just close friends, you, Marcus, a few people from college, and Dad promised he'd actually show up for once. Elena's stomach dropped. Adrian's coming? I know, right? Miracles do happen. He usually has some work excuse, but I guilted him hard this year. Lily laughed. It'll be weird having you both in the same room. My best friend and my dad. My 2 favorite people who've never really spent time together. Yeah, weird. After she hung up, Elena called Adrian. We have a problem, she said when he answered. What kind? Lily's birthday party. She's expecting both of us. Silence. Then, when? Saturday, 2 weeks. I'll make an excuse. You already promised her you'd come. She specifically told me you promised. More silence. Elena could practically hear him thinking, calculating angles. We'll manage it, he said finally. We've been managing it so far. That's different. That's avoiding each other at the office. This is actively pretending we're strangers while celebrating your daughter's birthday together. Then we pretend well. His voice was clipped, controlled. This is what we signed up for, Elena. I know, She stopped, tried to articulate the unease building in her chest. It feels wrong. Being dishonest with her like this. It is wrong, but the alternative is worse. He was right. Elena knew he was right, but that didn't make it easier. The 2 weeks before the party passed too quickly. Elena threw herself into work, trying to avoid thinking about the inevitable awkwardness. But the more she tried not to think about it, the more it consumed her thoughts. The night before the party, Adrian called. I need to see you, he said. Elena went to his house, found him on the deck, staring at the city lights with a drink in his hand. Having second thoughts? She asked, joining him at the railing. Perpetual second thoughts. That's my baseline. About tomorrow? About everything. He took a sip of his drink. This is getting harder. What is? Pretending you're just another employee, keeping distance at the office, watching you laugh with Marcus and not being able to touch you. Elena's chest tightened. You're the one who set those rules. I know, and they're still necessary, but that doesn't make them easier. So what are you saying? Adrian turned to face her fully. I'm saying that I'm in deeper than I intended to be, that you've become something I can't compartmentalize, and that scares the hell out of me. It was the most emotionally vulnerable she'd ever seen him. Elena reached up, cupped his face in her hands. You think you're the only one scared? She asked softly. I'm terrified, Adrian. I'm lying to my best friend. Working for a company that operates in moral gray areas I still don't fully understand. Sleeping with a man who's twice my age and comes with more baggage than an airport carousel. This is possibly the stupidest thing I've ever done. Then why are you doing it? Because the alternative is walking away from you, and I can't seem to make myself do that. He kissed her, deep and desperate, and nothing like his usual control. When they broke apart, his eyes were dark. Tomorrow's going to be difficult, he said. I know. We have to be perfect. No lingering looks, no accidental touches, nothing that suggests we're anything more than acquaintances. I understand. I mean it, Elena. Lily knows me too well. One slip and she'll notice. Then we won't slip? But even as she said it, Elena wasn't sure she believed it. Lily's birthday party was at a rooftop bar in downtown LA. Intimate, just like she'd promised. Maybe 20 people total. String lights and a view that made the city look almost beautiful. Elena arrived early, helped set up, tried to calm her racing pulse. She'd dressed carefully, nothing too formal, nothing that screamed effort. Just jeans and a nice top, normal friend attire. Adrian arrived exactly on time, carrying a gift bag and wearing the kind of casual clothes that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. He hugged Lily, said something that made her laugh, then made his way around the party greeting people with the ease of someone comfortable in any social situation. When he got to Elena, he extended his hand. "Elena, good to see you." She shook it, professional, brief. "You too, Mr. Vaughn." "Adrian, please, we're not at the office." "Adrian." Then he moved on, and Elena released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. The party proceeded normally. Lily opened gifts, gave a slightly tipsy speech about gratitude and friendship, dragged everyone into group photos. Elena laughed in the right places, made conversation with people she half remembered from college, tried not to notice every time Adrian moved through the space. But she felt him, constantly. That awareness they'd developed. She knew when he was looking at her, even when she couldn't see him, knew when he moved closer or farther away based on some internal radar she couldn't explain. Around 10, Marcus cornered her near the bar. "You and Vaughn seem comfortable," he said casually. Elena's heart skipped. "What?" "Just an observation. Most people are intimidated by him. You're not. I work for him. I'm used to it. Still, it's interesting." Marcus sipped his beer. He doesn't usually come to these things. Must really care about Lily to show up. She's his daughter. Yeah, but in Vaughn's world, family and business are complicated. The fact that he's here, making an effort, it's notable. Elena didn't know what to say to that. Fortunately, Lily called Marcus over for something, saving her from having to respond. But the conversation left her unsettled. Later, when the crowd had thinned and people were starting to say their goodbyes, Elena found herself on the far end of the rooftop, alone, looking out at the city sprawl. "You're hiding," Adrian's voice came from behind her. She didn't turn. "Just getting air, liar." He moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched, but didn't. To anyone watching, they'd look like two people having a casual conversation. "This was harder than I thought it would be," Elena admitted quietly. "For me, too. I wanted to touch you about 40 times tonight. I counted 37 distinct moments where I wanted to pull you aside and kiss you." His voice was low, careful. "But we did it. We made it through. Is this what it's going to be like? Forever pretending?" "I don't know." He paused. "I haven't thought that far ahead. Maybe you should start." "Elena, I'm serious. We can't keep doing this indefinitely. Something's going to give." "I know." He shifted and his hand brushed hers. Brief, fleeting, but intentional. "But not tonight. Tonight we're just two people at a birthday party. Tomorrow we figure out the rest." "Dad!" Lily's voice carried across the rooftop. "Come take a photo with me and Elena." They turned. Lily was waving them over, phone in hand, smile bright and completely unsuspecting. Adrian and Elena exchanged one quick look. Then they walked over, stood on either side of Lily, smiled for the camera like nothing was wrong. Later, when Elena saw the photo Lily posted on social media, she'd stare at it for a long time, at how normal they looked, how perfect the lie appeared. And she'd wonder how much longer they could maintain it before everything shattered. The unraveling started 3 months later, on a Tuesday morning that felt like any other. Elena was in her office, reviewing a logistics contract when her door opened without warning. She looked up expecting Adrian or Marcus. Instead, Lily stood in the doorway, and the expression on her face made Elena's stomach drop. "Hey," Elena said, forcing brightness into her voice. "What are you doing here?" "I was in the area." Lily closed the door behind her, sat in the chair across from Elena's desk. "Thought I'd surprise you, see where my best friend works. You should have called. I could have taken an early lunch." "I tried calling. You didn't answer." Elena glanced at her phone, 3 missed calls. She'd been deep in the contract, hadn't heard it ring. "Sorry, I was focused on work." Clearly, Lily's tone was flat. Careful. "This is a nice office, better than I expected for a junior associate." "Adrian's generous with workspace." "Adrian." Lily repeated the name like she was tasting it. "You call him Adrian." Elena's pulse kicked up. "That's his name." "At his birthday party, you called him Mr. Vaughn. Now it's Adrian." "We work together. It's less formal at the office." "Right." Lily leaned back in her chair. "How long?" The question hung in the air. Elena could feel her carefully constructed world starting to crack. How long what? Don't. Lily's voice stayed level, but something sharp lived underneath. Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm asking. How long have you been sleeping with my father? The words landed like physical blows. Elena's mouth went dry. Lily, just answer the question. There were dozens of ways Elena could have played this. Denial, deflection, carefully crafted lies that might buy her time. But looking at Lily's face, at the hurt and anger warring there, she couldn't do it. 3 months, Elena said quietly. Give or take. Lily flinched like she'd been hoping to be wrong. Since when exactly? Since a few weeks after I started here. So the whole time you've been working at Meridian? Yes. Did he hire you because of this? Was that the plan all along? No, it started after. I swear, Lily, it wasn't what? Wasn't planned? Wasn't intentional? What the hell was it then, Elena? Lily's voice cracked. You're my best friend. He's my father. How does that even happen? Elena had rehearsed this conversation 100 times in her head, prepared explanations and justifications. But now, faced with Lily's actual pain, every practiced word evaporated. It just did, she said helplessly. I know that's not an answer. I know it's not enough, but I don't have a better explanation. Try. Elena took a shaky breath. At the beach house, that weekend after graduation, something happened between us. We tried to ignore it, tried to stay professional, but it kept... She stopped, started again. I tried to walk away, multiple times, but I couldn't make myself do it. Because you love him? The question dripped with disbelief. I don't know, maybe. It's complicated. Complicated, Lily laughed, bitter and sharp. That's one word for it. Betrayal works too. I never meant to hurt you. But you did it anyway. Lily stood abruptly. 4 years of friendship. 4 years of me trusting you with everything, and you've been lying to my face for 3 months. I wanted to tell you. When? When were you planning to tell me? After you got engaged? After you became my stepmother? The words were cruel, meant to wound. Or were you just going to keep sneaking around forever? Elena stood too, needing to not feel at a disadvantage. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me, Elena. Make it make sense. I can't. I know it doesn't make sense. I know it's messy and wrong and... Does he love you? The question stopped Elena cold. What? My father. Does he love you? Or is this just some midlife crisis thing where he's using you to feel young again? That's not fair. None of this is fair. Lily's composure cracked completely. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You were supposed to be the one person I could count on. The one relationship that wasn't complicated by his world and his choices and his fucking empire. And you took that from me. Elena felt her own tears building. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. I know. They stood there in Elena's office, years of friendship hemorrhaging out between them. The silence felt terminal. I need to go, Lily said finally. Can we talk about this? Please. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Lily, but she was already gone. The door clicked shut behind her with devastating finality. Elena sank into her chair, shaking. She should go after her, should try to explain better, should do something other than sit here watching everything fall apart. Her door opened again. Adrian this time. One look at his face told her he already knew. She was just here, he said. I know. What did you tell her? The truth. Elena's voice came out hollow. What else was I supposed to do? Adrian closed the door, moved to the window, hands in his pockets. His expression was carved from stone. I tried calling her, he said. She's not answering. She's upset. She's devastated. There's a difference. Elena stood, cross to him. What do we do? I don't know. He wouldn't look at her. I told you this would happen. I told you we couldn't sustain it. So what? You were right? Is that what you want to hear? I want to hear that my daughter doesn't hate me, but I don't think I'm going to get that. His pain was visceral. Elena wanted to reach for him, but something in his posture warned her off. "She'll come around," Elena said, not believing it. "Will she? You don't know Lily like I do. When she's hurt, she cuts things off, clean, permanent." He finally looked at her. "I can't lose her, Elena." The implication hung heavy. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to give her space. Time to process." "That's not what you're saying." Adrian's jaw tightened. "What do you want me to say? That we'll fight for this? That what we have is worth destroying my relationship with my daughter? I want you to say something other than running away the second it gets hard. This isn't hard. This is impossible." He turned to face her fully. "I have one child, one person in this world who matters more than anything else. And I just broke her heart because I couldn't keep my hands off you." The words cut deep. Elena felt them land in all the places she'd been trying to protect. "So that's it? We're done?" "We were always going to be done, Elena. You knew that from the beginning. Knowing it and living it are different things." "Yes, they are." He moved toward the door, stopped with his hand on the handle. "You should take some time off. A week, maybe 2. Let things settle. You're benching me. I'm giving you space to figure out what you want. Whether this job is still worth it without—" He gestured vaguely between them. "Without this." Then he left, and Elena was alone in her office with the ruins of everything she'd built. She didn't take time off. Showed up to work the next day and the day after that, throwing herself into contracts and compliance reviews with desperate focus. If she worked hard enough, thought hard enough about liability clauses and shipment routes, maybe she could avoid feeling the hole Lily's absence had carved in her life. Adrian avoided her. Completely. He routed her assignments through his assistant, skipped meetings she attended, became a ghost in his own company. Marcus noticed. "You and Vaughn have a falling out?" he asked one afternoon in the break room. "Something like that." "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." He nodded, didn't push. Elena was grateful for that. 2 weeks passed, then 3. Lily didn't call, didn't text, blocked Elena on social media with the kind of surgical precision that hurt worse than any angry message could have. Elena tried reaching out, left voicemails that went unanswered, sent texts that showed as delivered but unread. Even drove to Lily's apartment once, but the doorman said she wasn't taking visitors. The loneliness was crushing. She'd known this was a risk, had understood intellectually that she might lose Lily, but understanding something and experiencing it were galaxies apart. On a Friday, 4 weeks after everything imploded, Elena was packing up to leave when her office phone rang. Internal line. "Carter," she answered. "It's Adrian. Can you come to my office?" Her stomach tightened. "When?" "Now." She found him behind his desk, looking like he hadn't slept in days. The careful polish he usually maintained had developed cracks. Wrinkled shirt, loosened tie, hair that suggested he'd been running his hands through it. "Close the door," he said. Elena did, stayed standing near it, maintaining distance. "I heard from Lily," Adrian said without preamble. Elena's heart kicked. And she's angry, hurt, wants nothing to do with either of us for the foreseeable future. "Did you explain?" "There's nothing to explain. We slept together. We lied to her. Those are facts. Everything else is just noise." Elena crossed her arms. "So that's it? We just accept that we've lost her? What choice do we have? We could fight for her, show her that this isn't just some sordid affair, that we actually—" She stopped, regrouped. "That we actually care about each other. Do we?" Adrian's eyes met hers. "Or did we just enjoy the thrill of something forbidden?" The question landed like a slap. Elena felt anger surge. "You don't actually believe that." "I don't know what I believe anymore." He stood, moved to his window. The view of Century City stretched below him, all steel and glass and power. "I know that I've destroyed my relationship with my daughter. I know that you've lost your best friend, and I know that what we had doesn't feel worth those costs." That's the grief talking. Maybe. Or maybe it's clarity. He turned. "I think you should resign." Elena's breath caught. "What?" "This isn't working. You being here, me being here, pretending we can maintain professionalism after everything. It's not sustainable. You're firing me. I'm suggesting you pursue opportunities that don't come with this much baggage. That's firing with nicer words. Call it whatever you want. I'll write you a reference that'll get you into any firm in California. You'll land on your feet. Elena stared at him. At this man who'd unraveled her life, who'd made her want things she'd never planned for, who was now discarding her with the same cold efficiency he probably used on failed business ventures. You're a coward, she said quietly. Probably. All that talk about being honest, about being ruthless, about making hard choices, it was all bullshit. Because the second something actually matters, you run. I'm not running. I'm being practical. You're being terrified. There's a difference. Elena moved closer, needing him to hear this. You're so scared of losing control that you'd rather blow everything up than admit you actually feel something real. And what do I feel, Elena? Explain it to me since you seem to have it figured out. You love me. The words came out steady. Sure. You don't want to. You've probably tried to talk yourself out of it 100 times, but you do. Adrian's expression went carefully blank. Love is a strong word for a 3-month affair. It wasn't an affair. It was more than that, and you know it. Was it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like we had some good sex and interesting conversations. That's not love, that's companionship with benefits. Elena felt tears building, but refused to let them fall. If that's really what you think, then you're more damaged than I realized. I never pretended to be anything else. No. You just pretended this didn't matter, that I didn't matter, that you could compartmentalize me like every other asset in your empire. She headed for the door. I'll clear out my desk Monday. Elena. She didn't stop, didn't look back, just walked out of his office and his company and what remained of the life she'd built. The weekend was a blur of packing and crying and angry texts she wrote but never sent. By Monday, Elena had assembled enough composure to face clearing out her office with something resembling dignity. She arrived early, hoping to avoid the morning rush. But Marcus was already there, coffee in hand, leaning against her doorframe. Heard you're leaving, he said. Word travels fast. Small company, smaller when the boss and a junior associate have a very obvious falling out. He came into her office, closed the door. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You knew. I suspected. Wasn't my business to confirm. He handed her his coffee. Drink. You look like you need it. Elena took it, grateful. Did everyone know? Most people are oblivious, but some of us paid attention. He studied her with surprising gentleness. You okay? No, but I will be. Yeah, you will. He glanced at the boxes she'd started packing. Where are you headed? No idea. Somewhere far from import-export companies run by emotionally unavailable men. Marcus almost smiled. That eliminates most of L.A. She spent the next 2 hours boxing up her professional life. Files, books, the few personal items she'd brought to make the space hers. It should have felt freeing. Instead, it felt like defeat. She was sealing the last box when her door opened. Lily. Elena froze, packing tape in hand, not quite believing what she was seeing. Hi, Lily said quietly. Hector Diaz. Elena set down the tape. I didn't expect... what are you doing here? Dad called me. Said you were leaving. Lily closed the door but stayed near it, keeping distance. I had some things I needed to say. Okay. I'm still angry at you, both of you. What you did was... She stopped, took a breath. It was a betrayal, and I don't know if I can forgive it yet. I understand. But... Lily moved slightly closer. I've been thinking about it. A lot. And the thing is, I'm mostly angry because you didn't trust me enough to tell me. Elena blinked. What? You thought I'd react badly, so you hid it, which I get, because I probably would have reacted badly at first. But Elena, her voice cracked slightly. 4 years of friendship should have bought you enough trust to let me try to understand. I was scared of losing you. Instead, you just postponed it and made it worse when I found out on my own. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Lily. I know you are. Lily wiped at her eyes. And I know my father. I know how he is. Controlling. Intense. emotionally constipated to a degree that probably requires therapy. Despite everything, Elena almost laughed. But he's also, Lily continued, he's also been different the last few months. Lighter, less of that constant tension he usually carries. I noticed it but couldn't figure out why. She met Elena's eyes. It was you. You made him different. Elena's throat tightened. That's very generous. It's honest. And here's the other honest thing. You're my best friend. You've been there for me through everything. Bad relationships, career anxiety, family drama that had nothing to do with you. You've never let me down before this. Lily, let me finish. Lily moved closer still. One mistake doesn't erase 4 years of being the most loyal, supportive, brilliant person in my life. It complicates things. So where does that leave us? I don't know yet. I need more time, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to separate my anger about the line from what you two actually have together. We don't have anything together. It's over. Lily's eyebrows rose. Since when? Since your father suggested I resign and made it clear that what we had wasn't worth the damage it caused. That idiot. Lily said it with more affection than heat. He's running scared. That's what I told him. And what did you tell him about how you feel? Elena looked at the boxes stacked around her office, at the physical evidence of another ending. I told him I loved him. And he told me it was just a 3-month affair that didn't mean anything. Bullshit. Lily pulled out her phone, started typing furiously. He's been miserable for 4 weeks. I've never seen him like this. He's not eating, not sleeping, snapping at everyone. That's not someone who didn't care. He lost you. That's why he's miserable. He's lost me before. We've had fights. This is different. Lily finished typing, put her phone away. I just texted him to get his ass down here. Lily, you don't have to eat. Yes, I do, because you're both too stubborn to fix this yourselves, and I'm tired of watching 2 people I love suffer because they're scared. You don't love me anymore. I said I was angry. I didn't say I stopped loving you. There's a difference. Lily grabbed Elena's hands. You're my best friend. My dad is my dad. And apparently you two have this whole intense, complicated thing that I'm going to need therapy to fully process. But that doesn't mean I want either of you to be alone and miserable. Elena felt tears spill over. I really am sorry. I know. And eventually I'll fully forgive you. But right now I'm going to be mediator between my best friend and my father in what might be the weirdest conversation of my entire life. She paused. So, you're welcome. 3 minutes later, Adrian appeared in the doorway. His expression when he saw both of them went through several rapid transitions: confusion, concern, resignation. Lily, he said carefully, what are you doing here? Fixing your mess. Come in. Close the door. He did, moving like he was approaching a trap. His eyes found Elena's, held for a beat, then moved away. Both of you sit, Lily commanded. They sat, on opposite sides of Elena's desk, maintaining distance. Okay, Lily said, positioning herself near the door like she might need to block an exit. Here's what's going to happen. You're both going to be honest. Completely. About how you feel, what you want, all of it. And I'm going to sit here and witness this disaster of my own making, because apparently I set you up at my graduation party and didn't realize it would lead to this. Lily, this isn't your fault, Adrian started. I know it's not. But I'm still angry at both of you, and this is how I'm channeling it, by forcing you to actually communicate. She looked at her father. Dad, you start. Tell Elena what you actually feel instead of all that stoic bullshit you usually hide behind. Adrian's jaw tightened. This is inappropriate. What's inappropriate is firing the woman you're in love with because you're too scared to admit it. I didn't fire her. I suggested, oh my God, Dad, just stop. Lily's voice carried equal parts exasperation and affection. I've watched you operate for 23 years. I know your patterns. You push people away when you're afraid of needing them. You did it after Mom died. You've done it with every woman who's tried to get close since, and now you're doing it with Elena. The mention of his late wife made Adrian flinch. That's different. How? Because your mother she was planned, safe. We built a life together that made sense. And Elena doesn't make sense? Nothing about Elena makes sense. His eyes found hers again. She's too young, too idealistic. She sees the world in ways I forgot how to see it decades ago. Being with her feels like... He stopped. Like what? Elena asked quietly. Like standing too close to something bright. Eventually you get burned. Or, Lily interjected, eventually your eyes adjust and you realize the brightness is actually a good thing. Adrian shook his head. You don't understand the cost, Lily. What I've already put her through. What staying with me would mean. Then let her decide that instead of making it for her. Elena spoke before she could second-guess it. I already decided. I chose you, Adrian, even knowing what it might cost. Even after losing Lily, even after everything fell apart, I'd choose you again. His expression cracked. Why? Because you see me. Not the resume or the ambition or the careful performance I give everyone else. You see the parts I usually hide and you don't flinch. She leaned forward. And because you're not as cold as you pretend to be, you're just scared, which makes you human, which makes you someone worth fighting for. I hurt you. Yes, and I hurt Lily. And we all hurt each other because we were trying to avoid exactly this kind of honesty. Elena glanced at Lily, who nodded encouragement. But maybe that's what love actually is. Not the pretty, easy version we see in movies, but the messy, complicated version where people screw up and hurt each other and have to decide if it's worth trying to fix. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I don't know how to do this. How to be in something that matters without destroying it. You learn, Lily said gently. You try. You fail sometimes, and the people who love you stick around anyway. Even after I lied to you for months? I'm working on it. Ask me again in 6 months. She smiled, small but real. But yeah, Dad, even then. He looked at Elena, really looked, without the walls or the distance. I told you it was just an affair. I didn't mean it. I know. I was trying to make it easier for both of us. It didn't work. No. It made it worse. He stood, moved around the desk, stopped close enough to touch but didn't. I love you. I think I have since that first night at the beach house when you called me out for being evasive. And it terrifies me. Elena stood too. Good. I'm terrified too. That means we're doing it right. Or we're both idiots. Probably both. Lily cleared her throat. I'm still in the room, and while I'm glad you're having a moment, I need to establish some ground rules. They both turned to look at her. First, Lily said, ticking off fingers. No more lying to me about anything. I don't care how uncomfortable the truth is. Second, I reserve the right to be weird about this for a while. It's going to take time to adjust to my best friend dating my dad. Don't rush me. Fair, Elena said. Third, and this is important, you two need to actually talk to each other, like adults. No more dramatic gestures or running away when things get hard. She looked at her father specifically. That means therapy, Dad. I'm serious. Adrian looked pained. Therapy. Therapy. Or I'm revoking my tentative blessing and you'll have to win me over all over again. That's extortion. That's consequences. Take it or leave it. He sighed. Fine, therapy. Lily smiled, turned to Elena. And you. Stop being so noble and self-sacrificing that you let him push you away. If he's being an idiot, call him on it. That's what partners do. Partners, Elena repeated, testing the word. Or whatever you want to call it. Boyfriend-girlfriend sounds weird given the age gap. Lovers sounds like a bad romance novel. Figure out your own terminology. Elena looked at Adrian, found him already watching her with an expression that made her chest tight. We'll figure it out, she said. Over the next few months they did. It wasn't smooth. There were fights, real ones, where they had to learn how to disagree without shutting down or running away. There were uncomfortable family dinners where Lily made pointed comments about honesty, and Elena tried not to feel like an intruder in a dynamic she was still learning to navigate. Adrian started therapy. Hated it at first, then gradually admitted it might be helping. He learned to say things like, I'm scared and I need help, without looking like the words physically hurt him. Elena learned to hold her ground, to call him out when he retreated behind walls, to demand the vulnerability he'd built a lifetime avoiding. And slowly, carefully, they built something real. Lily came around more than Elena had dared hope. She and Elena started having lunch again, awkward at first, then slowly finding their rhythm. They talked about boundaries, about what Lily needed to feel comfortable, about how strange it was that her two favorite people were now together. "It's like my worlds collided," Lily said one afternoon over coffee. "And it's still weird, but it's also kind of perfect. In a twisted, definitely going to give my future therapist job security kind of way." "I'll take twisted perfect over nothing," Elena said. "Yeah, me too." 6 months in, Adrian asked Elena to move into the Hollywood Hills house, not as a dramatic gesture, but as a quiet acknowledgement of what they'd become. "I don't want you to feel rushed," he said, "but I also don't want to keep pretending you don't belong here." She moved in on a Saturday. Lily helped, making jokes about becoming a stepchild and insisting they keep one guest room clear for when she needed to crash. It wasn't perfect. Adrian still struggled with emotional availability. Elena still had moments of doubt, wondering if she'd traded too much of herself for this relationship. They fought about work-life boundaries, about his business practices she still wasn't entirely comfortable with, about how public they should be about their relationship. But they stayed. Both of them. Choosing each other day after day, even when it was hard. A year after everything fell apart and rebuilt, Elena sat on the deck of the Hollywood Hills house watching the sunset. Adrian joined her with 2 glasses of wine, settling beside her with the kind of ease that came from time and trust. "Lily's bringing Gabriel to dinner next week," he said. "The San Francisco tech guy. Think it's serious?" "Serious enough that she wants us to meet him, which means I have to pretend to be a normal, non-intimidating father." "You're terrible at pretending." "I know. You'll have to help me." Elena smiled. "I can do that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights begin to sparkle as darkness fell. After a while, Adrian's hand found hers. "I never thanked you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up, on me, on us, when it would have been easier to walk away." Elena laced their fingers together. "You made the same choice. Not at first. You had to drag me kicking and screaming into admitting I wanted this. Someone had to. You were being stubborn. I was being terrified. That too." He turned to look at her, expression open in a way it never used to be. "I love you. I know I don't say it enough. You're getting better at it. I'm trying. I know, that's why it works." They kissed as the sun finished setting, and Elena thought about how far they'd both come. From that first electric moment at Lily's graduation to this, something solid and real and worth every compromise it had required. Love, she'd learned, wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about finding someone who fit neatly into your life plan or made sense on paper. It was about finding someone who saw your flaws and chose you anyway. Someone who challenged you to be better while accepting exactly who you were. It was messy, complicated, sometimes painful, but with the right person, it was also worth every risk. Elena had spent so long building armor, constructing a life based on control and careful planning. Adrian had spent even longer doing the same. But together, they'd learned to set down the armor, to be vulnerable, to trust that what they'd built could withstand the inevitable storms. Not because they were perfect, but because they were real. And in the end, that mattered more than anything else.